All right, so today we're going to talk about strategies to identify and address equity challenges in implementing college and career pathways. And so today I have amazing guests from Parkland College and also Black Hawk Community College. They are going to introduce themselves as they talk more about their programs and their initiatives at their particular institutions. And so here's just a short session description of what we're going to do today. You all already have this in your booklet, so I'm not going to spend time on it, but just to make sure that you are indeed in the right space. And so today we're going to give a brief overview of the college and career pathway endorsements. I'm going to give you some policy background. We're going to talk about some project goals, grant overview, and then Parkland is going to come up, and follow up behind Parkland will be Black Hawk College. And then we'll pause for questions and comments at the end. So EdSystems Center. So we are an organization whose mission is to shape and strengthen education workforce systems to advance racial equity and prepare more young people for productive careers in a global society. And so we have three main focus areas. And so those three main areas are college and career pathways, bridges to post-secondary, data engagement throughout the state and sometimes even nationally. And then we also we work with various community networks throughout the state and sometimes nationally as well. So I'll give you a brief overview of the College and Career Pathway endorsements. And so the Post-Secondary Workforce Readiness Act was signed by the governor in July of 2016. And so there are four components. But again, today we're going to focus on the College and Career Pathway endorsement on high school diplomas. And so here are some important things to note, that high school districts are going to strongly be encouraged to implement dual credit pathways by 2025. And so this encourages community college to participate in terms of partnering with these particular districts to provide a robust dual credit offering in various pathways. And so here's just a brief outline of what that's going to look like in chronological order. So then there's 1 to 3 endorsement areas that are going to be required, and then there's the graduating class list there. So important thing to know about a college and career pathway endorsement students. So they are uniquely college and career ready. So what does that mean? So I'm going to talk about this pyramid here. So at the foundation of that pyramid are general employability skills that were embedded in high school experiences for those students. And so one thing to note is that these students are familiar with a robust work setting and that they understand problem solving and what that means for learning. And so these students are uniquely ready and understand what it means to be within a particular career path. And so they understand and have an increasing commitment towards a particular industry. And so they've taken early college and career courses towards a particular credential. And so these students are generally accelerated towards a particular career. And then lastly, they're academically ready for college. And so a part of the endorsement is that students take at least 6 credit hours of career-focused coursework and that they are ready for college in terms of math and English college-level courses. And so what you see here is a visual representation of the college and career pathway endorsement framework. And so all of the components are listed here. So it starts with individual planning, which includes financial aid, advising, resume, and personal development. And then below that are professional learning. And so this is where you get into your work-based learning experiences, and then also like career exploration activities that are supervised by a person within a particular industry credential or particular industry area. And then coupled with those experiences are those career-focused instructional sequence courses. Again, we encourage students to do those 6 credit hour courses. And then lastly, I stated before, those students are also uniquely ready for college, meaning that they're already ready for college level reading and math, English and math. And so these are the endorsement areas that students are going to have options to choose from. And then what you see here are the various policy alignments throughout our state. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this particular grant program. And so as we're thinking about college and career pathway endorsement and how that is new in our state, so our school districts already have a stake in the game, right? Like they know that these expectations are coming and that they are revving up for this new process. And so what we are doing is we're working with community colleges to understand what that means for them. So the high school districts already know the expectation. So now we're educating community colleges on how they can be more involved. And so through this particular grant, the grant goals are to increase secondary enrollment in college and career pathways, particularly in underrepresented industry areas, increase the number of students who complete secondary pathways, earning a college and career pathway endorsement and industry credential. And then, of course, we want to increase the matriculation rate of students entering into post-secondary programs, particularly in community colleges and workforce, develop currency and value of the college and career pathway endorsement, and to create equity plans. So a lot of people ask the question, like, what is currency? Like, what does that mean? And so this particular grant is centered around how do we incentivize students who have earned this credential as they are transitioning into community colleges. And so this grant program is working with about 7 different institutions throughout the state to think critically about how they are incentivizing those students. So students who receive or earn this particular credential will have a special reward, so to speak. And so here are some of the expectations of this program. And so our institutions who participate, they are going to publish the currency with community college partners for students graduating with the endorsement by May 2023. And so the second piece that I think is most important for us for this particular presentation is that our community colleges are submitting a pathway equity document. And so this particular document is including resources and identifying strategies in terms of like matrix around race, gender, and strategies that address inequities within their particular programs or pathways. And so here are a list of the institutions that are participating in the program. And then I have highlighted Parkland and Black Hawk because they are going to talk about some of the things that they're doing at their institution. So I'm going to pause and turn it over to my colleague Nancy to introduce herself and talk about Parkland.
Thank you. We'll see if my voice wants to work at the moment. I'm Nancy Sutton, and I am the Vice President for Academic Services and the Chief Academic Officer at Parkland College. I'm going to be brutally honest with you about the work that we are doing in order to hopefully help you all see how this might work for you. Parkland College, as most of you may know, is located in Champaign, Illinois. We serve 12 counties. That's a portion of or all of 12 counties. We have 28 high schools. Parkland College enrolls approximately 10,000 students annually. Like the rest of you, I had to double check those numbers at the last minute to make sure I was being accurate. Hopefully you're all enjoying a little bit of the enrollment bump that we're seeing this semester. Our students range in age from 16 to 86. 75% of our students live and work within the district. 22% of our area high school 22 graduates are attending Parkland this year. So we're a little down. There was a time when we could say 1/3 of the students from our high schools came to us. That's not true right now. Early College and Career Academy is a program that we have in partnership with our Education for Employment organization, and that accelerates career training for the high school students. And those are courses that they come to our campus to take every morning. So those are the ones where the high schools bus the kids in or the kids drive themselves, and they spend their first hour and a half to 2 hours of the day with us before they go on to high school. And those students, we have seen nearly 70% of those students continue on after high school. So that's what we hang our hat on in terms of if you can introduce a career path to a student in high school, they are more likely to continue on in college. And so that's really where we're trying to build a lot of our work on the CCPE. More than 80% of the completers of our long-term certificate programs or RIS programs are employed in career jobs within a year of graduation. So that's the other important statistic that really lends itself to understanding why we want to push this career pathway to the students as soon as we can, so they understand where they can be and the living wage that they can earn later on. We agreed to join the initiative that was put forth to us by EdSystems and take the grant, mostly because our new president, Dr. Lau, really wanted to do this. So we started not having a clue what we were going to do. We already had several initiatives going on that seemed to work well with it. We were already trying to partner with employers to engage the high school students in career opportunities. We talked about this earlier in the first session. Amy talked about it, that our students don't even know what the possibilities are, and they and their families and their mentors and their support groups don't understand the career opportunities that exist for them. And if we can't reach them early enough, middle school at the latest, they don't know what classes to take or what they should be doing in high school to have themselves be ready. So we were already sitting around tables like most of you with our employers trying to say, how do we make people understand that these are not lower class, dirty jobs. These are good, well-paying jobs. We have diesel technicians making 6 figures. Why can't we help people understand that this opportunity exists? We were also already starting to work on providing outreach to our underserved and minority students who haven't considered career or educational opportunities. We have learned, mostly anecdotally, that Black African American students from our district high schools do not come to Parkland or do not stay at Parkland because they say they don't feel there's a place for them, they don't always feel welcome, and they don't have the guidance to help them understand the career path they should take. So we had already identified this, we acknowledged that this is an issue we have, and we've been trying to figure out what do we do about it. Because the last thing you want to hear is that you're not considered welcoming to any group. We also started trying to assist our high schools in developing programs of study for career pathways using the program of study, the programs that had already started in the state. So we were sort of on that path anyway. And then our industry partners have been coming to us for a long time asking to build a pipeline of skilled future employers. Our health professions, Carl Hospital and OSF, are in Champaign-Urbana. They both had come to us and said they want to go out and recruit from the high schools. And we said, well, why don't you partner with us and we'll recruit together because we can help actually train them. So we'd started that as well. All of this fit in with the CCPE initiative. The equity issues that we have addressed, that we focused on healthcare and manufacturing right now for the endorsements. We've looked at the numbers and we know that enrollment and completion in both our healthcare programs and in manufacturing and industrial technology do not reflect the racial, ethnic, and gender diversity of our population. Healthcare, we're better on the gender diversity, but we are not doing well on the racial and ethnic diversity. One of the things in healthcare that we know we have a problem with is almost all of our healthcare programs are selective admission. But we have a capacity. If we can only take 50 students and we may get 80 students who qualify with the math scores and the chemistry scores and the other selective admission items, the problem is it's going to be the top 50 that get it. And we have seen that our racially diverse population students are not always in the top. And we could talk for a long time, and I'm sure you'd all be happy to engage in the conversation about what is happening through K through 12 that is causing this and what could be done. But we have to deal with the reality. So we are using the CCPE currency as a way to deal with this, and I'll explain that in a minute. Opportunities in health, allied health, are also unknown to the students. Is there a question in the back? Well, one of the things that we can do is if they follow our BCCA, our early, they can get the CNA credential in healthcare. That's the number one. Is it free? That depends. Our EFE actually provides funding for students to do this, so it really depends. In individual schools, some it's totally covered, others the high school will pick up the cost, some pass it back. Those are different arrangements. That's another one of the issues that we're working with. Opportunities in allied health were unknown. We found out that all the students thought the only thing you could do in health professions was be a nurse. And there's a lot of other opportunities, so we knew we needed to get that information down to the families at an earlier time. Same thing happened in manufacturing. We found that students and families are less aware of the career opportunities and the earning potential, and that they don't have an identified post-high school career goal. And particularly, we found this among our racial and ethnic diverse populations. So strategies that we're using and that we're incorporating into the work with the CCP is facilitating the relationship building between the high schools and the employers so that they can develop the idea for what's the work experience they're going to get. Developing career exploration events and open houses for middle school and high school and their families. And this is where we're actually putting the most of our effort. We discovered that even when you have money and you offer it to the high schools and say, we can give you some money here and we'll do this and help you develop it, when they have something that they have to say they're going to do by 2025, 2023, they're not necessarily thinking about it yet. So we haven't had a lot of luck giving the money away. That's okay, because we decided what we really need to do is help build the momentum from middle school through, that there is a career path that you can take. And while the high schools decide what endorsement they want and they're going to apply for those, we're going to be there to help them set that path in place. We're working on developing and co-branding promotional materials. I'm going to show you a couple we're doing that are specific to an employer, to Carl Hospital. But we can also do them specifically for the individual high school so that they can show the students, here's the courses you could take, here are the employers that will give you work experience, here's the teams, competitive teams you can be on, because there's an element of that teamwork that has to be done while they're in high school. We're also building on the existing programs that we have in the Early College and Career Academy. We're making sure that the dual credit we're offering them, the 6 credits, it might be gen eds like their math and composition, but wherever possible, particularly if they're going toward an AAS, we're looking for the foundational courses in the career to get them excited about it, because they don't need the same level of composition that the transfer degrees do. Our first year experience course, most of you have one, we just happen to call it FYE 101. We're starting to align that with the AVID program that Unit 4 is the school district that's right in Champaign. They have 2 high schools. So our largest high schools, it also has some of the largest diverse population of students. So it's one we really decided to work with. They're choosing the health professions pathway. One of the things that's come out of this grant is we're now having regular meetings with their group and making plans, and we're starting to align our FYE to their AVID program so that they don't feel that we're taking students away from their AVID program. We're joining. This is one of the biggest things we have found with dual credit. Our larger schools do not, they feel we are competing with them. We are taking the students out of their elective classes and we're taking the students away from their faculty. And so we need to find better ways to partner on that. The currency that we're offering is to hold seats in selective admission programs. So we've got, say for example, we have 50 seats in nursing. We're going to hold 5 of those for students who graduate with the endorsement in health professions. as long as they meet the other requirements. So they will have to have a certain level of math and they will have to have completed high school chemistry. And so we're going to hold those seats for them. So we'd already been thinking about if we could do that. The CCP gave us the perfect opportunity. So we'll be able to do that in all of the selective admissions that we have. We'll hold a certain number of seats specifically for those students. If it really takes off and we have to change how many seats we hold, we can do that. If we really see increased enrollment, then we have the joy of being able to add additional cohorts and take more students in the health profession programs. The other thing we're doing is we're working with employers to provide incentivized work experience with priority given to CCP students. So on the manufacturing side, if they come out with the manufacturing endorsement, they will have priority to a pre-apprenticeship or to a paid internship or apprenticeship. So those are the ways we're working. It's different with each school. Those of you who have districts that are very wide and you have a variety of employers attached with each high school will find that that's the trickiest thing, is to work with them to help figure out what is it that those employers can do to help make this happen. So this is just an example. Not that easy to see from where you are probably, but hey, you're all going to get slides to be able to look at later. It's a draft. And we worked this out with Carl with Carl Hospital. It's specifically aimed at high school students to talk to them. This one talks specifically about surgical technology. We have then tailored the courses that could be offered so that the career-focused early college that they get actually helps move them forward. Because I love the phrase, a random act of dual credit. In fact, I'm going to steal that now because we have a lot of that, where the schools picked courses just because they thought it would fit and it does nothing, and they don't understand that it doesn't build or lead to anything. So we're trying to be very conscious about the choices. Now, if we did it when it was a general health professions, we could very easily make CNA, it's a 6-hour course. It gives them that certificate and it gets them started. So any of you who haven't even started with your high schools on doing this, you're not behind. Most of the high schools, especially in the rural areas, they're not even thinking yet about what to do. They need somebody to step up and start talking to them about it and maybe help them on some of the marketing and the promotional side. But the big thing we're going to do is start developing open houses and events to start encouraging our middle school students and their families that these pathways and these careers are open to them. And now I believe Black Hawk College.
Can I ask a question? Sure. So do your students that finish CNA or certificate
They get the I don't know if it's a license or a certification, but they sit for the
college offers? I guess that's what I'm asking. Are they part of that?
It actually, okay, I'm not 100% sure that I understand the question. If they complete our CNA program, they are a certified CNA to go out and get a job at any hospital. Or, for example, if they don't do it through us, if they go to Carl Hospital and Carl teaches them to be a CNA, the only place they can be a CNA is at Carl.
But does the college then offer a separate certificate program? Certificate of completion?
Yes. Yeah. It's a 1 class, 6 credit hour certificate. Got it.
Well, good morning. My name is Richard Bush. I am the Associate Vice President for Economic and Workforce Development at Parkland College. And it's very nice to see so many smiling faces. So just a little brief background of who we are. We are located in Moline, serving about a 225,000 citizen population across 9 counties in northwestern Illinois and about 18 school districts. We enroll approximately 4,000 students. I didn't check that, but could be higher. But so far, we've been averaging, at least through the pandemic and now post-pandemic, with a little bit of a bump in that range annually across our 2 campuses. The breakdown, 16 to 77 for most of our students, with the percentages that you see up there, typically for our population. Our dual credits tend to be about 29 to 30% of our population. And we do have a very strong reputation throughout our school districts and throughout the counties as having very high quality, highly prepared individuals, which make us a very attractive alternative to our students as they seek their next path after the secondary areas. So why do we want to get involved with CCPE? And we've, just as a preamble, we've been rolling this out in a very intentional way. So our colleagues at Parkland have really been able to go all in much earlier. But as we were trying to piece this together, we were trying to put it together in a way that allowed our school districts to absorb it a little bit more. One of the things that we heard right off the bat as we started talking about applying for CCPE was the bandwidth issue that a lot of our high schools were having in terms of being able to stand up the staffing to begin work on the CCPE application. And what did that mean, and what did it mean to support it? So we spent a lot of time discussing those things. But from our standpoint, the why for us was, how can we improve the structure of CTE programs with our high school partners? Much like Parkland, we've got a few high schools within our district that will take any dual credit we throw at them, even if that leads to nothing. Even if, for example, my colleague likes to talk about the fact that we've got students who will take every history course that we can provide them. But when they transfer, it ends up one of those history courses work for the gen ed at the 4-year, and the rest fall into an elective bucket. So helping to create, from the CTE perspective, and maybe even a broader conversation, a better structure on how best to intentionally put dual credit together for each individual student, so that they have a higher, more efficient transfer rate when they go to a 4-year institution or enter the workforce. We want to improve our connections and partnerships with area employers, workforce agencies, and draw all of that together, be that center point of this wheel to draw all of that together for our K-12 partners as well. They've got great connections. We've had good connections, but our employers are kind of hit and miss as to who they want to go to and have those conversations. And we saw ourselves as a convening agency to make that happen to some degree. We want to acknowledge students. As my colleagues who are here in the room have heard me say on a number of occasions, I want to throw nothing away. So if a student earns some sort of skill or competency in high school, whether formal or informal, if we can quantify that, we don't want to throw that away. We want to bring that forward, and we want to acknowledge those accomplishments, those skills developments. And CCPE is one way for us to build a framework and a structure around that to actually begin that conversation. We want to help our employers understand what the value is of CCPE and how it's influenced what we're doing at the community college level to rework some of our courses and programs, as well as to partner with the high schools to make a more smooth pathway for that, and produce at the end entry-level individuals coming out of high school that could be employable and go into apprenticeships, as well as how we would continue them on at the community college to continue to develop those key skills that they're going to need. And again, to create that, to be that hub, that convening hub that can bring everyone together and have those rich, meaningful conversations and make those connections truly happen. So from a regional pathway perspective, we acknowledge there's a lot of inequities in our community. Our demographics and the demographics at our institution are in alignment. We are very Caucasian based with a very small minority base. We want to shift that significantly across all of our programs, not only the college, but we also want to create those opportunities. And CCPE is really, from our position, it was a great excuse to get in deeper into those high schools, to tunnel through that gap between different populations within the high schools and create new opportunities and shift the demographic coming forward. We see in the health sciences and the manufacturing, engineering, tech area, significant disparities. Our underrepresented populations are significantly absent in those areas, and we need to fix those. Men are absent in the health sciences area by an incredible amount. Women are absent in our manufacturing area. We need to change that. And then members of color and Latinx populations are absent from the picture. So we've had a number of strategies primarily at this point in the game, we have really gone out of our way to ensure that we're being very intentional about the application of CCPE. Again, we've had those conversations and recognized very early on that our school districts were struggling with bandwidth and capacity to deal with the application for CCPE. What does that look like for them, as well as take advantage of that opportunity to restructure some of the conversations around dual credit to make a more meaningful and efficient framework for their institutions. So we're not taking every history course under the sun if you're going to be a welder, but we want to make sure that what you are taking are going to lead to those CTE, AAS degrees, or even those transfer degrees at some point down the road that really have impact and are efficient for you to get to that next level. So it's really opened up those dialogue and those conversations. Awareness and orientation initiatives, we're beginning to roll those out. We have those in place, but we're beginning to reevaluate those and start to look more deeply at those as a way to convey not only what CCPE can do, but a lot of the other grants that are cousins to CCPE, I guess is a good way. ESACE for one is a cousin, and PATH and many others are all pointing to a very structured, efficient framework for students to matriculate through secondary to post-secondary. We want to increase the capacity for the college in terms of being able to deliver CTE along with our partnerships with the secondaries, increasing all of our capacity. And we are continuing to develop what we will end up monitoring in the end for specifically those students who show up with CCPE as an endorsement on their diplomas. We want to keep track of what they're doing and how they're doing going forward. And again, we want to honor that work that they've done throughout. So for us, we want to increase the Latinx, Black, female students across all of these industries. We see that as a huge opportunity, especially now in this post-pandemic era. That's why we picked manufacturing and health sciences. Health sciences, for its obvious piece, it's very high demand right now, but we need to increase the footprint of those underrepresented genders and populations within the health sciences. But with the post-pandemic era and the global situations, we want to make sure that, oh, is that you?
Yes.
Oh, I went over.
It's okay.
I thought it wasn't a nice transition. But, okay, there you go.
Thank you so much, Parkland, and also Black Hawk Community College for providing such wonderful examples of currency and also how they are providing equitable opportunities for students within their particular institution. So I want to highlight some additional community college equity plan examples. So what some of the other institutions are doing in addition to these two here is they are working to increase Black, Latinx, female student enrollment in high-wage pathway industry sectors. For example, health sciences and also manufacturing. They are increasing the number of dual credit courses in math and English and providing additional supports for these particular courses, creating pathway partnerships with school districts that serve a high percentage of vulnerable populations. So they're seeking out partnerships with these particular institutions. They are providing paid tuition and books for low-income and rural students. So working with their various funding sources, including institutional foundations or other means of fundraising to leverage those funds to support those particular initiatives. And then bolstering student support and gateway courses. So in particular, there's a intro biology course that is a gateway for students who are interested into taking fields within health sciences. And so institutions are increasing supports around that. And that could be tutoring, offering it in the summer, additional faculty office hours as well. In terms of other currency, so tuition stipends, waivers, and scholarships are being provided for those CCPE earners, course credit towards particular industry credentials, 1 to 3 course credit portability, advanced program application and or admission process, and that means adding application points or holding particular spaces for students who are earners. There are some institutions that are guaranteed placement and selective enrollments, and that are offering waived admission requirements. And then there are some dynamic institutions that are offering job placement opportunities. And in addition to that, additional career exploration opportunities for those students who are earners within the college and career pathway endorsements. And so I want to pause for a moment and have you all reflect on a few things, right? So this is a moment where I'm going to allow for you all to share thoughts that are circling in your mind, a concept or an idea that squares your thinking, or 1 to 3 takeaways. I also just want to acknowledge that we have some amazing experts in the room. I'm going to call out my colleague, Heather Pinzak, if you want to wave your hand. If you are interested in learning more about work-based learning, she's your go-to person. And then my colleague, Juan Jose Gonzalez, if you can raise your hand too. He is an expert in pathway development too. So you have a robust amount of people here to support any questions that you may have in the moment. So again, take a moment and think through a thought that's circling in your mind, something that squares your thinking, or feel free to share 1 to 3 takeaways. I think I saw a hand all the way in the back. If you want to stand up and state your question, that'd be great.
I can tell you that at Parkland, one of the things we've been talking about is the fact that we don't have engagement with parents. And I'm also reminded on a regular basis that many of our students do not have the parental support that a lot of us might have traditionally grown up with. So I'm constantly reminded to also think about guardians and mentors. And so the way we're doing it, or going to try to do it, is through events on campus or events at the schools that are supported with some other grants that we have as well, and also partnering with some community groups. There's a group in Champaign called the Dream Project that specifically reaches out to at-risk students, particularly young men. And we're going to try to connect with the families that way by inviting them to come and try hands-on activities and things like that we can do. We always joke about that we need to go down further. I personally think we need to go down and have brochures sitting in the maternity wards of every hospital, but to help families understand the value and the importance and the prioritization of education. And so that's where we decided we're going to try it. I'm not going to say it's going to work. We're going to try it, because if we can reach the students at the middle school and they know what's available, hopefully the parents and the family units will also then support that. In addition, we've identified that for many of our students who are at risk, they also have at least one parent that needs to upskill in order to be able to provide for the family. And so this will be an opportunity for us to reach out to them as well and show them what's available at Parkland to help them. So.
Much like Parkland, we have some of the same problems. We are going out of our way to try and push deeper and deeper into our communities to try and have those conversations through community agencies and churches and other places. But just like Parkland, and probably almost all of us in this room, parents are absent from the conversation. We bring it up at every meeting that we can in terms of how do we reach those influencers, the parents, grandparents, and others in a room to help guide their young person in their pursuits for education, whether it's training or apprenticeships or even a degree. So just building on what my colleague from Parkland said, it's going to be a moving target, but it's something that we need to definitely engage our parents on. And definitely where Parkland's final statement was, we realize that those parents too need to be upgraded, upskilled along the way, especially in this very uncertain marketplace. So
one thing that we're working with is the first year experience course, and I'm sure most of you are doing the same thing. We're actually starting to push it down into the high schools. It's about the only non-gen ed course that I'm willing to actively push down into the high schools that can be taught by anyone with a master's degree. Ours is articulated as an elective. It has built into it a lot of career exploration. And some of the high schools that we've talked to about the CCP, they're actually looking at it as the potential career exploration course that they could use, because then it also teaches a lot of what you're talking about, the time management, the goal setting, the financial management. It also brings them on our campus at some point during they come and they get a little of that sense. The tricky thing for us is we've set the age that you have to be to take a course at Parkland at 15. If we were in Ohio, they do dual credit in 7th and 8th grade. My faculty are not ready to do that. 15 met a lot of resistance, but we are looking at how low can you go? You know, can you do it for 9th graders or not? I think those are things we're all going to struggle with, but it is introducing them, as you said, to this college idea, or this simply, not even college, continual learning to choose a path. So I think it's something we're all going to have to try to figure out, but we're definitely having to look at things differently.
So I want to make two comments and then we'll go on to the next question. And so to the parent question, in the session, before this session, we talked about how we administered what we call the Illinois Dual Credit Survey. And so that survey was sent out to parents. And so out of the 1,000 responses, about 25% were from students' parents. And so I agree, one of the main topics that bubbled up from that survey is that parents do value more marketing material, more information, more direct, detailed communication about dual credit and what that means for their particular student. And so I do think we have opportunity to really lean into that in our state and think more critically about how we educate our parents in terms of students and understanding what it means to be college ready. One thing about students who are college and career pathway endorsement earners, I know it's a small population at this point. These students do participate in what we identify as individual planning. And so part of that planning do include some financial aid, literacy, some understanding of what college means. Students work on like a personal statement and think about goals for themselves. However, we're still working on bringing that up to speed. So I just want to address some of those things. I think there was a question over here.
We don't have any high schools that have the endorsement yet. None of them have applied yet in our district, but that's a great idea, and I'm going to remember that. One thing we did do is, I mentioned the Early College and Career Academy. We actually do a signing day for those students, so that when they're finishing, if they're going on to, as they graduate from high school, if they're coming on, we have a big celebration, and we sign them up just as though they were athletes, because that's more important anyway than athletics. So I like the idea, and I think that probably is very true. We have to add that value to it that shows that we respect this and we honor and we hold it at a higher level. So I'm stealing that idea. Thank you.
I love your comment. We've stood up a work-based intermediary in our area that's helped with creating those experiences for all of our school districts to give those students some exposure to those employers. One of the things that we have stood up and now we're going to expand across our district is the Ignite program, especially from the manufacturing standpoint, to try and give students an opportunity who have an inkling of manufacturing as an idea, an opportunity to be exposed to what all the aspects of manufacturing are. And we're bringing in employer contacts to be in the room, participating with these students and to work with them to educate them on these things. So we're hoping that these will continue to build those bridges with those underserved populations to help take some of the load off of the counselors in terms of what's available to them and create new pathways. So by no means a comprehensive list, but it's some starts. But thank you. Our math and English department I forgot the name of the initiative now where, Jody, do you remember the name of that? Sorry?
transitional math?
It's transitional math, transitional English. That's what it was. I couldn't remember transitional for some reason. That's what we've really begun using to make them more college ready and to remove some of that remedial work out of the equation. And we're working with our K-12 partners to properly position that for that purpose.
Are you talking about like readiness for math prior to enrollment in college by signing two credits? So yes, there's like that's complicated, right? One suggestion I would see is that where I'm seeing some information in my parents in college, there's some courses on the books at the community college level that have no English or math requirements. Then allowing those courses, passing those courses, so that make you eligible for a second course that might have an English and math requirement. So that kind of stacking of eligibility of credit might be a solution to avoid like math ratings tests. I would suggest that.
Any other questions? Yes.
So I know you mentioned that you took some empathy surveys and said that students of color might not feel welcome or may not feel comfortable on campus. So if you're going to start the pathways and this knowledge available, how will you all change the culture on your campuses to make students be able to persist in these pathways?
So the information that we had on that was anecdotal. It was people in the community telling us that these are the reasons that students didn't stay with us. So we've had several workshops and discussions on campus about what we can do about that. We've spent a lot of time talking about different learning styles and having the faculty kind of rethink their curriculum and what they're doing, and sort of an example I can use is the math faculty stopping for a minute and thinking that not every student actually came from a background where they go home and sit and can do homework. And so the idea of asking them to do homework might not be something that was actually built into their history. And so the faculty have started to develop some new methods and some new ways to approach the curriculum for different styles of learning. In addition, our student life programs have tried to increase the number of affinity groups and activities to try to engage students. So we are trying to, it's sort of a college-wide. Like I said, when you start to look at things and you listen, and this was several, right before the pandemic, we started surveying the community a little bit about what do you think about Parkland. And you hear that and you stop and you think, okay, we've been resting on our laurels a little too long, and we've been assuming that everybody fits this mold that we've got going. And so we've tried to change that as much as we can. And we're seeing a positive impact. We are seeing the enrollment and the retention and completion of both our African American students and our Hispanic students increase. So those are positive signs for us that it's working. A trickier thing is going to be making all of these courses accessible, because the money issue does come up quite a bit. We do have a school district high school district that will not allow a lot of students to do dual credit, because it's typically the families that can afford the tuition if the high school isn't paying for it. So they're reassessing their opportunities to provide scholarships. And we've also started scholarships for dual credit now as well. So just, it's baby steps, but. Yes, since we came back from the pandemic, we always had a Center for Academic Success, but we morphed it into what we call the Learning Commons. And so we staffed it with a lot more people, and we have a lot more tutoring opportunities and groups for those students. And our first year experience, we're developing it more fully and actually hiring a full-time faculty member to specifically run that program, with the idea of putting together cohorts of those students who are first generation. So like I said, we're trying to read the best practices, learn from a lot of our colleagues. Some things we tried before the pandemic that we stopped when enrollment went down, we're trying to bring those back. And we'll be 100% honest. I told you I'd be brutally honest. You're all suffering the same thing. Your non-revenue generating services are becoming larger than your revenue generating services. And how we sustain that is a very big question. When the students pay tuition, and we don't want the tuition to go too high, but we need to have so much support for them. And so I think we're all trying to find the ways to do that.
All right, as we conclude our program, I want to give a round of applause to our special guest.